In a previous video, I talked about the effects that AI, artificial intelligence, would have on dating and relationships. And in spite of some of the positive benefits AI will provide, we must keep in mind that human beings are hardwired to emotionally, physically, and mentally connect. And we need those connections in order to survive. Technologies such as social media platforms, dating applications, and artificial intelligence sort of behave like a digital agent that helps to foster the relationships between human beings and technology. However, when it comes to human interactions, the connections are being diminished. So what will it mean to truly connect with one another? As human beings become more and more dependent on technologies in order to connect, to create our goals, and to succeed in life, the disconnections between humans to human will become more and more apparent. And this phenomena has actually created what we are now calling an epidemic of loneliness, and it's affecting millions and millions of Americans. Hi, I'm Colette G, dating and relationship specialist and author. Welcome back to my channel and welcome newcomers. If you like learning about how to date, ways to attract your soulmate, and or how to improve the relationships that you're already in, then go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and then tick on the notification bell so that you're aware of when I drop a new video. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you're one of the millions of individuals that is affected by the epidemic of loneliness, then today I'm going to be talking about some possible ways that, or things that maybe led us to this place, how we got here, and some things that you can do to get from under this epidemic before it flourishes into a full-blown pandemic, which is what the Surgeon General is talking about where it's heading. Take a look at this.
The U.S. Surgeon General today declared a new public health epidemic in America: loneliness. A new report from his office finds loneliness can have profound effects on mental health as well as heart disease, stroke, and dementia. It tracks a decline in social connections and links all of this to billions of dollars in healthcare costs. Dr. Vivek Murthy is the U.S. Surgeon General, and he joins me now. Dr. Murthy, welcome back to the NewsHour. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Amna, for having me.
So your declaration and this report very clearly link loneliness to matters of life or death, to put it plainly. This one number stuck out to me. It found social isolation increases the risk of premature mortality by nearly 30%. How and why did you come to focus on this topic?
Well, Amna, I had certainly had firsthand experience with loneliness in my own life and also in my care of patients, where I found so often people come into the hospital for one condition or another, but there was loneliness lurking in the background. But it was only when I began my tenure as Surgeon General that I started to realize, in talking to people across the country, that loneliness was extraordinarily common. In fact, we're now finding that 1 in 2 adults report measurable levels of loneliness. And it turns out that young people are most affected than any other group. And here's why this is so concerning. It's because we've realized that loneliness is more than just a bad feeling. It has real consequences for our mental and physical health. It increases our risk of depression, anxiety, and suicide. But social disconnection also raises the risk of heart disease and dementia and premature death on levels on par with smoking daily, and even greater than the risks that we see associated with obesity. So however you look at it, loneliness and isolation are public health concerns that we have to prioritize.
We see, according to your numbers, that things were already trending this way, that it was then accelerated during the pandemic. In fact, one of the numbers you highlight was between 2003 and 2020, social engagement with friends decreased from 60 minutes a day in 2003 to just 20 minutes a day in 2020. Before COVID, how do you see that? What was driving that trend?
Well, there were a number of factors, and I'm glad you mentioned COVID because COVID has poured fuel on a fire that was already burning. It's exacerbated loneliness and isolation, but this has been building now for decades. We've in fact seen a decrease in participation in community organizations and faith organizations and recreational leagues over several decades. We've seen that technology has fundamentally changed how we interact with one another and how we communicate with one another, and unfortunately has often replaced what used to be rich in-person connections with online connections, which often are of lower quality. And finally, we see that people are just experiencing tremendous change in their lives. They're moving more, they're changing jobs more often, and that can disrupt a lot of our social relationships. It's not that these trends are necessarily bad in and of themselves, but what we have to do now in modern life is intentionally build in the infrastructure we need for connection in our individual lives as well as in our communities.
The Surgeon General has declared loneliness an epidemic, and millions of Americans are suffering from this. I've actually compiled a list of things that I want to talk about. I've also got my computer and my laptop open and I made a list here of things, and I've been doing a lot of research about this, but this conversation for me isn't new. I saw this happening. I saw this coming years ago when I talked about why I was getting off of social media. Before the pandemic, COVID pandemic even hit, I knew that we as a society were going to hit a point in time where people were going to be struggling with severe loneliness that would lead us into a loneliness epidemic. And here we are. I did some videos in the past. I hosted some workshops on how to deal with loneliness during certain times, during the pandemic, prior to the pandemic. And I talked extensively about this because I wanted to make sure that those of you who are tapped into my community would have the tools that you would need to avoid being subjected to this pandemic that we're now facing. And but those of you who have found yourself, dealing with this severe loneliness and you're in the grips of it, then I want you to keep watching, because I want to share with you some things that will help you to understand how we actually got here. And then I want to leave you with some things that you can start doing today to get from under this. Just so before I delve in to how to navigate the loneliness epidemic and really delve into what we can do as a society to prevent this epidemic from turning into a full-fledged pandemic, I want to discuss some things that you might think about in regards to how we got here. How did we get to a loneliness epidemic? I remember way back in the day, social networks being used to help us to create these different digital networks and communities so that we could share our ideals, share our interests and things with people in an online community. And it was also a way for us to network with people and tell them about events that we're hosting or places that we checked out or where we were going to be going and things that people might be interested in checking out in terms of restaurants, nightclubs, bars, poetry, all kinds of things. And we used social networks like MySpace and Facebook and Instagram in a way different way than we now use it today. Instagram used to be a platform that artists used, photography, printed arts, drawing, painting. Facebook, spin off of MySpace, which MySpace was this great platform that people got on there. You create your page, sort of like this, I want to say like a collage or, even a vision board of sort. You'd put music on and it'd be this place where people would land and go, wow, it'd be like this digital room where you can say, this is how I express myself in here. And these are the interests that I have. And these are the things I'm out there doing. And people would network with you and connect with you in this digital realm. And it was fun and amazing, and you'd go out and meet those people that you met on MySpace, and you'd have this like real life community. And then fast forward, Facebook came about and everybody went on Facebook, and it was like, hey, this is where I was last night. This is what I was doing. This is what me and my friends were engaged in. Have you ever checked out this place? And then they had like games and things that people could, like Farmville, and you could connect with other users. And it was great, and you'd meet with people. It wasn't about like, look how many friends I had. It was like building friendships based off of real people that you met, like, hey, are you on Facebook? And then you connect with those people on Facebook, but you still connected with those people off of Facebook. And that was social networking. But social networking, while it started out one way, there was an underlying agenda that maybe some of us weren't aware of, such as creating now what we call social media and utilizing these platforms to understand our behaviors, our interests, the language that we were speaking, what we were engaging in, who we were engaging with, and how, in fact, advertisers and marketing companies could use these platforms in order to basically turn us into consumers. But in order for them to do that, and I talked about this in a lot of other videos on, online dating and dating apps, I'm not going to delve a lot into it, but in order for us to become consumers to the degree that these companies wanted us to consume and buy, we would have to become lonely. And in order to do that, they would have to create turn these networks into addictions for us, so that we were using these networks more than we were actually engaging with people in real life. Hence, we now have social media, and more people are consuming information, consuming products and services, instead of networking and going out and creating a world and a life with real human-to-human connections. And that's one reason and one way we have now engaged in a loneliness epidemic. People are consuming, not utilizing, and using social networking as a tool, but being used by social media in order to create better and more engaged consumers. Which leads me to my next point, which is the economic hit that created on the economy. Because if people are not out connecting and they're utilizing applications and dating apps and social media platforms in order to connect, guess what they're not doing? They're not going out. They're not going to bars. They're not going to events. They're not going to dinner. They're not going to restaurants. They're not going to cafes. They're not going to coffee shops. They're not out there. They're not putting money and resources into the economy. And they are, but to larger corporations and not necessarily smaller businesses that rely on you to go out to their cafe. And I'm not talking about Starbucks, although Starbucks and other corporations have their place. I'm not downing them. What I'm saying is that when Americans stop going out to, pubs and restaurants and cafes and meetups and groups and networking events, and we stopped doing that and we spent more time engaging with social media and consuming information and giving our opinions and our thoughts, but not necessarily getting anything from that. And or when people started to engage more on dating apps and having these virtual residual dates over and over again, swiping over and over again, instead of actually getting out there to go on a date, the economy took a hit. And that leads me to the third and final point that really just took this over the edge, and that is the COVID pandemic. And all of this was in the making, okay? I don't think any of this was an accident. I think that we were led to a place that was going to create lonelier and lonelier individuals so that we would become better consumers of information, so that we would be easily controlled and manipulated for our political thoughts and views online, instead of actively getting out and participating in our communities and the environment in day-to-day human connections, so that we wouldn't care about what was actually going on in the world, because all we needed to do was use technology to voice our opinions, our thoughts and ideas, versus actually getting out there and connecting with other human beings to be the change that we want to see in the world, and to foster the real human-to-human relationships that we have. And once that happened, because of social media, because of the economic hit the economy took, and once the COVID pandemic hit, more businesses shut down. So here we are today. We are now temporarily filling the void of loneliness with online shopping and rants and hate speech and raging, all through these social applications and platforms, and using technology and being used by technology in order for us to be controlled easily by corporations, our government, and also that we are more compliant and better consumers. Now, I know what I just shared, it sounds pretty grim. And maybe it's a conspiracy theory that I have. And that's fine. It's my thoughts, it's my opinion, it's my beliefs on what's happening. And I truly do believe that there was an agenda to create this loneliness epidemic. And I do believe that if we don't do something different, if we don't make a change starting today, then we will find that we are in a pandemic of loneliness, which has its own challenges, and let's talk about some of those. The Surgeon General put out a report after declaring the loneliness epidemic, and I actually read the 82-page report online because I didn't want to just take what the media was saying about what's happening or give me little bits and clips of and their opinion of it. And I don't want to do that to you either, so I will leave the link in the description section so that you can read the full report. Some of the things that were extremely concerning to me, in fact, was the health risk. The loneliness pandemic has increased heart disease, the risk of stroke, developing dementia, cognitive disorders in children as young as 12 years old of age. This epidemic that we are now in has a higher risk of damage to us than if you were smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's a higher risk on our health than obesity, diabetes, and so much more. And like I said, I want to leave the link in the description section so that you can read the full report for yourself. Because we are not just talking about people who are choosing to be alone. And there's a difference between being alone with yourself and being at peace with yourself and meditating and enjoying being alone and being present. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm talking about is being in a room full of people and still feeling lonely, or literally being home alone and feeling this sense of loneliness where you have a sense of despair and no purpose, and it leads to anger and rage and all of these other psychological, emotional, and physical elements that we are now at risk of developing, not only as individuals but as a society. If we don't do something about this today, we are in serious trouble, because we are looking at a pandemic that I believe is going to not just affect us in America, but affect the globe. It's going to affect the world. So that this entire video is not fully grim, I do want to share some things that I believe that you can start doing today. Now, in the U.S. Surgeon General's report, there are some things here on what we can do as a society, as a civilization, and these things are going to require us to do what I'm going to share first in order for us to participate in the civilization and the communities and things that we live in. The advice I am going to give for anyone feeling lonely are just a few simple things that I think if you start doing these things today, you can make these small changes that will really create significant changes in your life and in your overall health. Beginning with unplugging. And what I mean by that is, I know that social media is now something that many are addicted to. So it's like telling, someone that smokes or drinks too much, or, even a full-blown addict to stop. I know it's going to be hard for you to unplug, because maybe you think, well, what's going to be going on? What if something's happening? Or maybe you are watching this video and you're like, well, my business is going to be affected. And I understand fully, because I run my own business. I use YouTube, and I have an Instagram page, but I stopped using social media because I wanted to unplug from social media and tap into human connections and build and foster relationships with humans and connect with individuals so that I can be of better service to them. That doesn't mean that I don't go online. I have a blog, I vlog, I'm here on YouTube, and I have a newsletter. I do go online, I do research, I read, I watch Netflix sometimes, but what I do is I unplug and I get off of line, and I minimize how much time I'm going to spend online, and I control what I'm going to consume. So when I say unplug, what I mean is to be conscious in what you're consuming and how long you're consuming it and how long you're online. If you have a smart device, you can set your device up to minimize how much social media you are consuming. That was how I tapered off of social media. And I wouldn't go over how much I was using it, no matter what I thought I needed to do or how important things were or what I thought I might be missing or anything. I just said, okay, that's it. I'm off. And so that's what I'm recommending to you, to taper back your social media consumption, taper back in your online usage, and be in control of what you are consuming so that you are utilizing social media as a networking tool and not being used by corporations and others who may not have your best interests at heart, and so that you're not feeling this sense of loneliness and depleted after being used by technology. Make a commitment to connect with another human being on a day-to-day basis. I'm talking about literally going out of your house and connecting with another human being. And you can start by first calling people that you know on the phone and talking to them, investing in calling, using the device to set up visual virtual chats with people where you can see them in the video, like Zoom or whatever other video application that you have. Baby steps, connecting on the phone, connecting through video with people and having real live conversations, and then maybe even connecting in live chat rooms that lead to conversations offline. First do that, and then eventually get out there and start connecting. If you live with other human beings and you are feeling a sense of loneliness, then I want you to unplug, step one, and reconnect with the people that you're surrounded with. If you're a mom, spend more quality time with your children. Have them unplug from their devices and have family time. Engage in games like Uno or Go Fish or checkers or chess, or simply just sit around and talk. We don't always need to have our brains stimulated. It's now overstimulated. Maybe our brains just need a little bit of a rest. Open up a book, something tangible, and not on your devices, not on your smart devices, but a real book. Or look through a magazine. Create a vision board or something with the family, creating a family goal for a vacation that you've all been dreaming of doing. Start planning for and figuring out how you're going to bring more money in to take a family vacation, whether it's a staycation right in your own state or something overseas. It doesn't matter, but reconnect with the people in your home. If you're just a couple living together or married, then reconnect with your partner in the home. Sit down and turn that TV off. No movies during dinner. Talk about how your day was, and not based on something you read online or what's going on social media. I mean real life stuff. Something that I started doing is I started taking an art class. I go twice a week for an hour a day. It's therapy for me. I shared it in my most recent vlog, and I'll go ahead and leave a card up above so that you can watch that video if you want to. But I now take an art class, and I host a Shut Up and Write meetup group. I have now started connecting with human beings based off of my interests. When I'm home with my husband, who many of the interests that I have, we share. We have Bible study every Sunday. I'm also putting together events and retreats and things so that we all can engage face to face. I'm sharing this with you because I really do believe that, it may take baby steps for you, but you can get offline and get out there and start reconnecting. And before you guys say anything about, well, it's too expensive, I want to share some things that can help you to be able to afford to reacclimate into society and to be able to afford to get out there and do the things that you once enjoyed doing. Be economically mindful of the money that you're spending so that dating isn't so expensive, or relationships, as one person stated online, love is expensive. Relationships aren't in the budget. Some person said online under one of the YouTube videos that I read when it was talking about the loneliness pandemic. And I thought, wow, yes, we are in an epidemic right now and of loneliness. But we also are dealing with an economic crisis in America right now. This is, stretching out across the world. But Americans are hurting financially right now, and a lot of people can't afford to go out and have that latte from Starbucks or meet up with a friend for Sunday brunch like they did pre-COVID and before we got into this economic hit that we are now in. People can't afford to go out to dinner, go and travel, or do the things that they once did. And so my tips for you today are to create a budget and look at where you're spending money. I know so many of you watching this video today are buying things online for your home or outfits for yourself that you don't actually need. You don't need an extra pair of shoes or that dress or that outfit so that you can look good for the gram. You don't need it. What you need, especially if you are at risk for loneliness, is to really set aside some money so that you can re-engage, not just with other human beings, so that you can share your interests, your ideas, your thoughts, your goals, and create community, but also that your money can be redistributed back into the economy. I think it's important for us to get back out there and supporting the last small businesses that exist, but also to re-engage in the economy because wealth is redistributed within our small communities, not just in these large corporations that are making more and more money. And they are looking forward to unleashing AI on us so that they can control us more, what we buy, what we spend, what we think, what we do. But don't get caught up in it. There is a place for technology, and I, for one, am grateful for technology and all the wonderful attributes and benefits that it has brought us as a civilization. But don't for 1 second believe that corporations have your best interest at heart, because they don't. They are cashing in on your lonely heart. They want you to be a more compliant and better consumer. And that is not what I want for you. And that is why today I'm sharing these things that you can start doing today, making these small, minor changes starting today, taking these baby steps today so that you can overcome the loneliness and we can come from under this loneliness epidemic and start to create community. Because if we don't, we won't survive, and we will not be able to thrive as a civilization. So that's all I have to share today. I know that what I shared today may have seemed grim, but I hope that some of the small changes that I shared today that you can take is of help to you. But as always, if you need help with overcoming loneliness, or if there's anything that I can do to help improve the quality of your life, whether it be your professional, platonic, or romantic relationships, then do visit findinghappily.com, and you and I can take that journey together.